In a world filled with opinions, assumptions, and loud narratives, India chose a different path. When certain global powers attempted to sideline or isolate it, expecting backlash, outrage, or protest, India didn't play into the noise. Instead, it focused inward, not in silence, but in strategy. It responded not with anger, but with ambition. India understood something profound. Progress speaks louder than politics. Rather than wasting time reacting to every criticism or challenge, the country got to work. It invested in its people, in its infrastructure, and in its digital future. It empowered entrepreneurs, backed innovation, and turned challenges into opportunities. While others debated, India delivered. It became the fastest growing major economy in the world. It built world-class startups, expanded its digital infrastructure to the remotest villages, and launched satellites into space, not to impress others, but to serve its people. Its fintech revolution brought banking to millions who had never held a bank account. Its pharmaceutical industry supplied life-saving vaccines to dozens of nations, even when it was dealing with its own crisis. And most importantly, India didn't seek validation. It let its progress do the talking. Every milestone, every breakthrough, every solution became a quiet but powerful answer to those who thought India could be pushed aside. This isn't just about economics. It's about mindset. While some look to divide or exclude, India built bridges with technology, with diplomacy, and with culture. It showed that leadership doesn't require aggression. It requires vision. It doesn't demand noise. It demands results. The world is taking notice, not because India shouted, but because it showed up, prepared, resilient, and ready to lead. And now those who once tried to isolate India are finding themselves needing to engage with it. See, in the end, real power is not how loud you are, but how well you grow. India chose growth, and the world can no longer ignore it. There was a time when many in the world believed that closing doors on India would weaken its rise. They thought that by limiting trade, withholding technology, or excluding India from elite groups, they could slow it down or keep it on the sidelines. But India didn't panic. It didn't beg for attention or entry. Instead, it focused on something far more powerful, building its own house. When doors closed, India didn't complain. It created new windows of opportunity. While others played political games, India played the long game. It invested in infrastructure, digital growth, and education. It empowered local talent and homegrown businesses. It made the decision to depend less on external approval and more on internal strength. India understood that lasting success doesn't come from knocking on someone else's door. It comes from having a strong, independent foundation. So while some nations look outward for validation, India turned inward to innovate, reform, and grow. It built highways, digital networks, and smart cities. It transformed governance through technology and connected its rural heartland to the digital economy. India also strengthened its global voice, not by demanding a seat at the table, but by becoming a table that others wanted to sit at. It launched space missions, became a leader in pharmaceuticals, and led digital payment innovations. Its actions spoke volumes, that no door, no matter how firmly shut, could stop a nation that was determined to build something greater on its own land. And today, those same doors that were once closed are slowly creaking open again. But now, India isn't waiting outside. It has already built something strong, stable, and respected. Now it engages on its own terms, not as a guest, but as a partner. This is the spirit of real growth, not seeking entry, but building excellence, not reacting to rejection, but responding with results. While the world watched, doubted, and tried to define India, it quietly laid bricks, poured concrete, and constructed a future on its own foundations. Because when you build your own house and strong, proud, and prepared, you no longer worry about who shut the door. You simply keep rising. Throughout history, rising nations have faced doubt. But rarely has a country turned that doubt into determination as effectively as India, when the world questioned its potential, when experts predicted delays, instability, or dependence. India didn't crumble under the weight of those expectations. It rose. Instead of being discouraged by the skepticism, India transformed it into fuel. Every doubt became a reason to work harder. Every closed door became a challenge to innovate. The country didn't seek sympathy. It sought solutions. This mindset built a unique kind of resilience, not just economic or political, but emotional and cultural. India learned to stand tall even when it stood alone. It weathered global pressures, economic shocks, and health crises with grit, not excuses. And with each trial, it didn't grow bitter. It grew better. That resilience sparked innovation. India became home to a thriving tech ecosystem, producing unicorn startups, cutting-edge digital infrastructure, and low-cost solutions with global impact. From the UPI digital payment system to affordable vaccines and space missions on a fraction of global budgets, India proved that innovation doesn't need luxury. It needs urgency and belief. At the heart of this transformation lies confidence, not arrogance, but quiet, unshakable belief. A belief that no matter how the world viewed India, the country had the power to define its own future. Confidence allowed India to lead with humility, to collaborate without compromising, and to grow without seeking permission. The beauty of this journey is that India didn't wait for the world to believe in it. It believed in itself first, and then made the world believe. What was once considered a limitation became a launch pad. What was once doubt became drive. Today, India stands not as a follower, but as a force. A country that took skepticism and turned it into strategy. A nation that chose action over anger, building over blaming. Because sometimes the best way to silence doubt is not by talking, but by building something so strong, so smart, and so unstoppable that the world has no choice but to notice. And that is exactly what India has done, turning every doubt into the fire that forged a stronger future. There was a time when India was seen as the country that needed to catch up, to be included, to be invited, to follow the rules set by others. But India chose a different path. It realized that waiting for approval meant staying behind. So instead of asking for a seat at the table, it built its own table. It didn't wait to be accepted. It changed the game and joined the global stage, not as a junior player, but as an equal. India understood that the future belongs to creators, not followers. And so it stopped copying outdated models and started creating its own. Whether it was in digital payments, space exploration, pharmaceuticals, or climate leadership, India showed that innovation isn't limited to the West. It's driven by necessity, vision, and courage. Take digital infrastructure, for example. While much of the world debated regulations, India launched the world's most inclusive digital economy, from UPI to Aadhaar. It empowered millions without bank accounts, brought small businesses online, and created a model that global leaders now study. In foreign policy too, India refused to be boxed into alliances that didn't serve its long-term interest. It chose strategic autonomy, cooperating with all, submitting to none. It balanced relationships with major powers while standing firm on its own values. It spoke for the global South, not just with sympathy, but with strength. And as the world faced from pandemics to war to climate shocks, India didn't wait for permission to act. It sent vaccines to nations in need, took bold steps in renewable energy, and advocated for peace on the global stage. It didn't follow, it led. This mindset of not waiting but shaping has redefined India's global image. It is no longer seen as a country waiting to catch up. It's a country that others are trying to catch up with. Because when you stop waiting for acceptance and start creating your own way, you don't just join the conversation, you help lead it. India has done just that, not by demanding equality, but by earning it. And now the world doesn't just accept India, it respects it. For decades, India was part of the global conversation, but often as a listener, a participant, a country expected to follow the rules others had written. Today, that narrative has changed. India is no longer just showing up. It is shaping the direction of global progress. And the most powerful part, it's doing it on its own terms. India isn't chasing models built elsewhere. It's creating blueprints that reflect its own values, its own needs, and its own vision. From digital finance to clean energy, from space exploration to public healthcare, India is not waiting to copy what others have done. It is building solutions that the world is beginning to adopt. Look at digital transformation. India didn't just bring technology to its people. It built a digital public infrastructure that is fast, secure, and inclusive. Billions now transact seamlessly through systems that cost a fraction of what others spend. This isn't participation, this is leadership. In space, India put a lander on the moon's south pole when much richer nations had failed. In pharmaceuticals, it became the pharmacy of the world by supplying affordable, life-saving medicines to countries that needed them most. In clean energy, it is leading international coalitions like the International Solar Alliance, setting global standards rather than waiting for them. What's remarkable is how India is balancing growth with principles. It's advancing technology without losing its humanity. It's embracing globalization without sacrificing self-reliance. It's building partnerships without becoming dependent. This quiet confidence, this ability to lead without noise, is what makes India's rise so unique. It is no longer about proving itself to others. It is about fulfilling its own promise for its own people in its own way. And the world is noticing. Global leaders seek India's voice in solving the biggest challenges, from climate to health to AI. Not because of its size alone, but because of its ideas, its integrity, and its courage to lead differently. This is not participation. This is transformation. This is a nation no longer reacting to history, but writing it. India is not just in the future. It's helping design it. There was study as a time when India's digital ambitions were underestimated, even dismissed. Many believe that a country with vast rural areas, income disparities, and infrastructure challenges couldn't possibly lead in the digital age. But India didn't listen to the doubts. It focused on building quietly, steadily, and strategically. And what followed was nothing short of a revolution. India launched one of the world's most inclusive digital ecosystems, not just for the elite, but for the common citizen. It wasn't about luxury apps or high-end tech. It was about empowering the masses. With initiatives like Aadhaar, Digital India, and the Unified Payments Interface, UPI, India built a foundation that brought connectivity, identity, and financial access to hundreds of millions. Today, a street vendor in a remote village can accept digital payments. A farmer can access government subsidies directly into a digital wallet. A student can access education with a few clicks on a smartphone. This isn't the future. This is India's present. What started as an internal mission to bridge the digital divide has now captured global attention. Countries that once overlooked India's digital capacity are now studying its model. Global tech giants are investing billions, not to teach India, but to learn from it. Even the critics, those who once questioned India's ability to scale tech, can no longer ignore the data. Over 12 billion UPI transactions per month, hundreds of millions brought into the digital economy, a booming startup ecosystem with innovation tailored to real-world problems. India proved that digital progress doesn't need to start at the top. It can begin with the last person in the line and pull the entire nation forward. And it did all this while maintaining data security, sovereignty, and scale, setting a new benchmark for how technology can serve people, not just profit. Now, when the world talks about digital inclusion, financial access, or tech for development, India is not just part of the conversation. It's leading it, because this revolution was never about impressing others. It was about empowering its own people. And in doing so, India became impossible to ignore, even for those who once tried. There was a time when India's voice in global forums was heard politely, more as a formality than as a force. Often seen as a developing nation still finding its footing, India was included in discussions, but rarely at the center of decision making. That era is over. Today, nations across the world no longer extend a seat to India out of sympathy, history, or diplomatic courtesy. They listen because India has earned its place through performance, principles, and progress. India didn't demand respect. It demonstrated it. It didn't wait for invitations. It created influence. Whether it's climate change, global health, digital transformation, or peace negotiations, India has consistently shown that it brings solutions, not just opinions. Take the COVID-19 pandemic, for example. While many countries were focused inward, India sent millions of vaccine doses abroad under the Vaccine Maitri initiative, not because it had to, but because it could. This single gesture shifted how many nations viewed India, not just as a nation in need, but as a nation that leads. In climate diplomacy, India committed to ambitious clean energy goals and became a founding force behind the International Solar Alliance. In technology, it built the world's most inclusive digital public infrastructure. And in space, it reached the moon's south pole, a feat only one nation had ever dreamed of before. This isn't just about achievement, it's about consistency. India has shown the world that it can handle complexity with maturity, balancing diplomacy, economic growth, security, and sovereignty without compromising its values. Today, when India speaks on global platforms, whether at the G20, BRICS, or UN, it isn't representing just itself. It often echoes the hopes of dozens of smaller or emerging nations that see India as a voice of fairness, balance, and opportunity. What changed? India didn't seek validation. It sought value creation for its people and for the planet. And through that relentless focus, it built credibility that couldn't be ignored. Respect isn't gifted in international politics. It's earned through action, sacrifice, and vision. India has earned that respect. And now the world doesn't just let India speak. It listens, because leadership isn't claimed. It's proven. And India has proven it, seat by seat, step by step. In today's fast-changing world, some countries follow trends and some set them. India has become the latter. Not just because of its size or population, but because of something far more powerful: its energy, ambition, and innovation. What was once seen as a rising force has now become a global inspiration, and the world is feeling it. Walk into any startup hub from Bengaluru to Berlin, and you'll find Indian ideas reshaping how we think about technology. Step into global boardrooms, and you'll hear Indian voices leading some of the world's most powerful companies. Visit developing nations across Asia, Africa, and Latin America, and you'll see Indian innovations from low-cost medicine to digital payment models being adopted and admired. What makes this impact so unique is that India's innovation was born from real needs. It wasn't about luxury or convenience. It was about access and survival. The result? Scalable, affordable, and smart solutions that are now being used globally. Take the Unified Payments Interface, UPI. Created to solve a local challenge, financial inclusion. It has now drawn interest from countries around the world. Or India's space program, which delivered lunar missions on a shoestring budget, inspiring developing nations to dream bigger. These aren't isolated successes. They are part of a pattern. India doesn't just solve problems, it solves them in ways the world wants to learn from. This momentum is powered by a new generation that believes there are no limits. Young Indians are coding new futures, founding impactful companies, driving innovation in AI, biotechnology, renewable energy, and more. Their drive isn't just about catching up. It's about creating something different, something better. And that spark is contagious. Investors are paying attention. Governments are partnering. Universities are collaborating. Because India's ambition doesn't stop at its borders. It travels, it influences, it inspires. The world no longer views India as a country waiting for opportunity. It sees it as a country creating opportunity for itself and for others. This is what makes India's rise unstoppable. It's not just about growth, it's about inspiration. And when that kind of energy spreads, it doesn't just change one country, it changes the world. There was a time when the world looked at India and saw only its challenges: poverty, bureaucracy, population pressure, and underdevelopment. Many experts predicted that India would struggle to rise, that it would lag behind faster-moving economies, and that it might collapse under the weight of its own complexity. But while others were busy writing off India's future, India was writing a new one. Quietly, methodically, and relentlessly, as it was preparing. It focused on long-term reforms, not short-term applause. It invested in infrastructure, digital systems, education, and manufacturing. It encouraged entrepreneurship, supported innovation, and empowered the youth. While the global narrative was full of doubt, India responded with action. And instead of shouting back at critics, it let progress speak for itself. When the world was distracted, India was laying digital highways that now power one of the most inclusive financial systems on the planet. While others were waiting for ideal conditions, India was training its youth, enabling startups, and building resilience. It didn't just react to problems, it anticipated them. And now the results are undeniable. Has become one of the fastest growing major economies in the world. Its Space India program is exploring new frontiers. Its digital platforms are revolutionizing public services. Its voice on global issues, from climate to security, carries real weight, and its talent is leading boardrooms, labs, and governments around the globe. This transformation didn't happen overnight. It came from years of preparation, from believing in the country's potential when others doubted it, from making difficult choices when it would have been easier to follow old paths, and most importantly, from never giving up even when the world expected failure. Today, India is not just catching up, it is setting the pace. It's not just being included in global conversations, it's shaping them. The same voices that once questioned India's future are now asking, how did India do it? The answer is simple: preparation, patience, and purpose. India didn't wait for the world to believe in it. It believed in itself. And while others were predicting its fall, India was quietly preparing to rise. Now, it's not just rising, it's leading. For years, people around the world debated what India could do. Some believed it had potential. Others doubted its capacity. Many offered advice, made predictions, or issued warnings about its population, its economy, its politics, and its place in the world. The voices were loud. The expectations were mixed. But through it all, India stayed focused. While some nations relied on legacy systems, India chose innovation. While others sought validation, India chose self-reliance. While the world debated whether India would rise, India simply got to work. It didn't just make promises, it made progress. India said it would build the world's largest digital identity system. And it did. It said it would bring banking to the unbanked, and it did. It said it would manufacture vaccines, build highways, reach space, and empower its youth. And it did. Every time someone said India should do this, India responded with action. We already are. What separates India's story is not just ambition, but execution. Grand plans are easy. Delivering results, especially in a nation of 1.4 billion, is the real challenge. And that's exactly what India did. From transforming rural villages into digitally connected communities, to turning local startups into global tech leaders, from bringing clean energy to millions, to speaking boldly on international platforms, India didn't wait for change. It became the change. And this wasn't about showing the world what it could do. It was about showing its own people what was possible. It was about building dignity through opportunity, pride through progress, confidence through consistency. Today, when the world talks about the future of technology, trade, health, climate, or leadership, India is no longer a side note. It's central to the conversation, not because it demanded that place, but because it earned it. And that's the heart of India's story: quiet strength, steady resolve, relentless progress. So when people ask, can India rise? The answer isn't theoretical, it's visible, it's measurable, it's undeniable. And that's exactly what India did. It turned doubt into determination and determination into destiny. Ending. So today, we don't need to ask whether India can lead. The answer is already here. India isn't rising with noise, it's rising with purpose. Not by following the path set by others, but by creating a path that others want to follow. This is a new era, an era where India doesn't wait for opportunities. It creates them. It doesn't ask for respect. It earns it. And it doesn't seek to dominate. It seeks to inspire. To those who doubted, India has responded with results. To those who watched, India has shown the way. And to those who believed, your belief is now becoming history in the making. The world is changing, and India is not just part of the change, it is helping lead it. The journey is far from over, but the message is clear. India is no longer the future waiting to arrive. India is the future shaping itself now. Thank you.